own my own business called Good to Know Goodrow, and I help families and children navigate many different things, including behavior, communication, self-help skills, adaptive skills, sensory integration, and more. I work with individuals ages 18 months to 30 years, and I currently have my own program that I call Please, and it's a developmental program for ages 5 through 21. It's a K through 12 program in a local school district, and I really enjoy what I do a lot. In fact, I love what I do. I'm here to answer any questions people may have. Anything is a good question. There are no silly questions. I will try to help however I can. Explain some of the jargon. I can talk about different skills, different ideas for working on different skills and goals. Anything that you have a question about, don't be afraid to ask it. Go ahead and ask. There's no silly questions. And I also want you to know that I am a mother of a child with a visual impairment and also a sensory processing disorder, so I know what it's like to fight for things and to be frustrated and overwhelmed and not sure if you should ask the questions or not. Here, you can. You can ask any question that you feel like you need to ask. You can just let me know what you need, and I'm happy to help. So, anyone have a question? Have a suggestion? I can talk about a variety of things, but I'd much rather answer questions from people, so that and if I am looking down, it's because I have my little sheet here, so that I can keep myself focused. So, anyone have anything they want to know? Thank you for the heart, Stacy. I appreciate it. So this video, I want you guys to know, was made possible by the Family Forever Adoptive and Kinship Families of the North Country. They were gracious enough to ask me to do this, and I'm so happy to help out however I can. So I guess if I don't have any questions, I'll go into maybe some verbiage that people are hearing about adaptive skills and what they are. So adaptive skills include self-help skills, they include communication skills, they include social skills, play skills, home and school skills, functional academics, community use. There's so many things that adaptive skills cover, and it's learning how to cope, it's work, it's health and safety. There's so many things, but there's so many easy ways to work on these things. So most of my students that I work with are developmentally between the ages of 3 and 6. Some a little younger, some a bit. They're all about that age range. Developmentally, they are. Chronologically, they range from 5 to 21. But we all work. I work with them all the same way. So the age of a child or a person doesn't really matter. Developmentally is where it matters. So that's my opinion. So self-care things that we can work on for adaptive skills is dressing themselves, bathing themselves, getting themselves ready, learning when they should wipe their nose and wipe their face, self-awareness. And a great way that I work on that kind of skill was with my daughter, and I still occasionally do it. She can't feel when her face is dirty or anything along those lines, so I would keep a little mirror, and you can get the ones that are safe from the dollar store and other places. I would have a mirror at the dining room table, and when she had a dirty face and didn't realize it, I would hold it up and say, here, you need to clean your face. I use the same method with my students in my program in my home and also in my program in the public school district. So also communication skills are part of adaptive skills, learning communicative ways to get what you need and what you want. So some examples of communication skills are PECS, sign language, verbal, of course, but if a child is struggling with verbal, then they can use a variety of things together. Just because a child uses sign language doesn't mean they aren't going to be verbal. Or if a child uses an iPad, like a Proloquo Go program, it doesn't mean that they're not going to speak. It just means you're giving them a stepping stone to communication. You can use iPad, PECS. Many of my students use iPads, they use verbal, they use a variety of all of these different approaches together, and it works really well. The staff that I work with are amazing, and they are great at letting me teach them and them teaching our students a variety of ways to communicate so that we reduce behaviors, so that we reduce meltdowns, and they can just ask for what they want and they need. And advocation is another thing I'm going to get into, self-advocacy for kids. They need to be able to advocate for themselves. It's so important for so many reasons. Another thing that's part of adaptive skills is self-direction. So that's solving problems. And solving a problem can be as simple as, how do I fit this toy in this slot? Or when they're not sure, I'm trying to think of a good way to explain it. Just working on their own, basically, and figuring things out and giving them time to do that. Letting them know when they're all done. Letting you know when they're all done. Something. So whether it's they're done eating, or they're done doing an activity, or they're just done in general and just need to be done. They need a break. Those self-management and problem-solving skills are really important in engaging the brain and advancing skills. So sometimes we have to let our kiddos struggle a little bit, so that they can gain self-confidence over time, and also they can just use that brain and get things going. They're so smart. Every single one is so smart. So we have social skills is another adaptive skill. And social skills can be things about thinking about other people's feelings. A lot of kids between the ages of 2 and 4 are very egocentric, is what it's called. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Like, they are the center of the universe, and that's okay. So that's a skill that it's okay for them to be that way, but we have to start to teach them to notice other people too. And that's understanding emotions, noticing emotions, understanding how if I do this, how does it affect this person? That's an adaptive skill too. Home or school things, cleaning up toys, picking up after yourself. Those are adaptive skills. Those are important skills that people need to have. Picking up your mess when you're done eating, just emptying your plate, or picking up something if it falls on the floor and just throwing in the garbage. Those are very simple ways to work on adaptive skills. Leisure skills. A big thing that gets overlooked for kids is how they manage themselves when they have free time. In my program, the kids, I have free time built in, so that they have to learn how to manage themselves at those times. Free time is very challenging for a lot of kids that need structure. However, they need to learn how to manage themselves in those times, because it encourages social engagement. It's a time where they can figure out what do they like and what do they enjoy, and they're not being told they have to do something. It's free time. But free time can be really hard for a lot of kids because it's open, and they fear making a mistake. Some kids do. Some kids fear that, or they don't know what to do. So typically when you see behaviors in like recess or in free time or playtime, they don't know what to do. They need someone to help them. So that's the times when you can take and teach adaptive skills through playing, or saying, here, do you want to do this or this? And you can give them 2 choices. And then they're still having a choice, but you're giving them some support. It's very important for kids to know what to do in their leisure time. Home and school living, we already went over that. Functional academics, so that would be like calculators. If a child really, really is struggling with adding and subtracting, they don't really need to know how to do it. Some children don't. Use a calculator. It's a process. It's a simple process that people can learn. It will help with learning how numbers work, in a sense. And then after that, I've seen kids, once they have done that, they can move on. So using a calculator is a good way to start a child who's struggling with adding and subtracting in a lot of ways, because it gives them, first, it increases their self-esteem because they're getting some of the answers right, okay? And then you can move forward with the steps of why is it 7? And then go backwards that way. Some kids that works better for. Let's see. Reading labels on items of food. Even if a child can't read, so to speak, they can still see the labels on the foods. They can still see the labels on games. They can still see the labels on movies. Pictures are just like words. So the way that I look at it, if a child can distinguish pictures, so if they can distinguish a picture on a video, or if they can distinguish a picture on their favorite food or a type of food, they're reading, in a sense. So I don't look at them as non-readers. I look at them as functional readers. They are functioning, and they are functioning on their own. Doesn't matter if they can read the words or not. And sometimes we don't even know. I think a lot of my students who are nonverbal read very well. And I'm still always looking for ways to acknowledge that and assess it and work with them on it. I try to come up with any ideas I can. I'm always trying to come up with something. My brain's always busy. Let's see. Letting a child use a sale paper. I do this with one of my students. Sale paper to choose items they want for groceries. You can have them dab it with a dabber. If they can't circle or they can't X, they can dab it. They can just point and then you can circle it. These are all skills. These are all adaptive skills. So it doesn't need to be fancy things, but the sale paper is very effective and it gives kids some control in their world. And it encourages them, teaches them reading skills because they have to go left to right. When you open the sale paper, you have to go in the same direction you would use a book. So all those skills are there. They're just within our daily lives, and I think they get oversought. People don't see them. They oversee it. Community use. So going shopping. What do you do when you're shopping? You walk with dad. You walk with mom. If you can't, set up boundaries. Visual schedules really do help, but I know they're hard to make. So using a timer is a really efficient way to work with kids. Let's say we're going to walk around the store for 10 minutes and get what I need, and then we can go to the toy section for 5 minutes, and then vice versa, and work it out with them because they are listening, and timers are so powerful with kids. So this also includes flexibility of thinking. It's okay to have things change sometimes. And kids have a hard time with things changing. It's challenging with behaviors. It's challenging with a lot of things. You hear no versus yes in the same situation. So let's say like you went to the store yesterday and whoever the child was with, I got Fritos. And then I went Friday and now I can't have them. So how come it was no, it was yes, now it's no? It's very confusing. So these are all things that take time to work on, but flexibility of thinking is so important. It's important for us as adults too. We get very rigid in the way that we want things done. And then we get frustrated with kids when they're rigid about the way they want things done. When in fact, we all do it. It's just how we cope with it is the difference. So also working. Some of these kiddos are going to have jobs eventually. And they have to learn how to cooperate with coworkers, be reliable, show up, read the clock so you know when you're supposed to be there. How do I clock in? What do I need for hygiene? What do I need to do? What do I need to have? Do I need to make sure my hair looks a certain way? So in my program, we do all those things every day. We hygiene in the morning. We check mirrors. We do all those things. And it makes you feel better as a person too. So it's important that they feel good. And when you feel good, you work better. I don't know how you guys feel, but when I don't have a shower or I feel bleh, and I always feel better when I'm clean and I feel better and I can think and okay, so that kind of concludes adaptive skills. It kind of concludes it. There's so much in there that I didn't even touch, but let's see, including related services in your home. So, Tennille, I'm sorry, I just saw your message. What do you recommend for when we go back to school to help get back into the routine after being off for so long? It's a hard thing here. I do think it's going to be a transition. I think the best thing to do is we'll most likely know within a couple days. At least we'll have a Saturday and Sunday to figure it out. So my recommendation would be on that Friday, I would start doing the normal routine you would do to go to bed and get ready and, start the normal routine on that Friday evening. And then get up at normal time on Saturday, go to bed at normal time, get up at normal time on Sunday, go to bed at normal time. Calendars would be helpful with this, where they count down, and then the smiley face would be the day we go back to school. It's hard right now because we can't put a date on a calendar for these guys because it might change. And it's challenging to tell them, oh, it's going to be this date when we don't even really know. So I think sticking to a routine as much as you can is important. I know my daughter she had a meltdown the first few days off because it was just, she was exhausted. We weren't following routine. I was trying to get everything settled and set up for my program and my classroom and then them, and it was just a lot. So stay on a routine as if you can, and let them know that it will be okay. Everything will go back to normal. We just have to wait, and waiting is really hard for kids. So maybe make it into a type of game where you kind of have them count every day. How many days have we been out of school? And, and that kind of thing. So it's not like a negative thing. And you could say, instead of out of school, you could say, how many days have we been home together? You can reword it. Hey, Lauren. Let's see. Okay. Christina Marie. Hi, Mia. I'm doing a live video. Sorry, that's my daughter. Hey, everybody. Sorry, I'm just seeing the messages now. Okay, Jamie, I have a 6th grader with a considerable workload through Google Classroom. I do have direct access to a special ed teacher. However, I'm starting to get very overwhelmed by the level of support he needs to complete things. Where do I draw the line? Okay, so my issue with this is that a lot of these kiddos are home and they had many more supports in place at school and typically probably a less workload. I would ask the special ed teacher if it would be possible to do 50% of the work, because it'd be better to have it done well than just done. So say that, we're struggling at home with the supports that we have, and I would really like to make this a positive experience as much as I can. So ask if you could maybe cut it to 50%, even 80%, something to meet that child in the middle, because this is a huge change for everybody. And I think that 50% is reasonable. And I know that a lot of work is being thrown at kids and it's too much. So I think that that would be a great way to do that. Okay? Amber, David always wants you to do free time with him. So if I say, go play while I do this, he says, play with me. Free time is hard for him on his own. Okay. Amber, have you ever tried doing a timer with him, saying, you go play for until the timer beeps, and then mommy will come play with you, and then you can set the timer again? Have you tried that with him? That's an idea. This is for Amber and David. The timers work really well when I work with them, so I'm just wondering. No, Lauren, that's a cookie. Let's see. Christy, how do we get kids to use coping skills? Example, homeschooling my daughter who has ADD and sensory processing disorder is very hard. She keeps having meltdowns and making it hard to get her work done. I'm living that right now, actually, Christy. So, and I have ADHD myself and anxiety. So what I did is I made my daughter a schedule and I put it in one of those sheet protectors, and she has to check it off as she goes through the day. She has breaks built in. She has a snack built in. She has playtime outside built in. So that she gets movement, which she really needs. And then we're done the day by 2 o'clock at the latest. Like, I'm trying to start it at 9 and end it at 2. And like I said, in between there's breaks and there's snack and there's, go play for 20 minutes, that kind of thing. And that's really helping her feel focused. And I actually made myself one too, because I'm a spaz right now. So there's my schedule. I have a joke that is, what is a unicorn? I'm a unicorn is what I call myself. What is a unicorn to do? So that's my schedule. And I'm following it. And it included everything. I put my meditations, I put everything on there. And it keeps me on a schedule and I feel secure and I feel better. So I think making her up a schedule, and let her do it with you if she's capable, let her do it with you. I think that would be a great idea. And it just has to be written down. It doesn't have to be fancy. I like the the sheet protectors because you can use Expo markers on it and erase them. So it's a cheap way to do that. Let's see. Abby, I have a family I work with who is having trouble with their 1st grader. There is no diagnosis, but she's refusing to do the work and being very, very mean. What would you suggest her to try? Okay, so Abby, does this child typically have anxiety? Because if she does, this is going to be a challenging time for her. Have you tried a schedule? If you haven't tried a schedule, I would try one. I would work in breaks. I would tell her that she's going to work for 20 minutes on whatever the project is, and then have a done folder. So work for 20 minutes. When you're done, it goes in the done folder, and then you have 10-minute break. And she can have choices at the 10-minute break. Like, she can play with something at the table. She can have a 10-minute, I want to move my body 10-minute. There's all kinds of Go Noodle, indoor recess things and all these kinds of things. So I would do a 20 minutes work, 10-minute break, 20-minute work, 10-minute break. So that she knows that she's not going to sit there all day. And I think she's just feeling overwhelmed and anxious like we all are right now. Ellie, I have a question. I have a 4-year-old with sensory issues. We want to work on potty training, but he's refusing to wear underwear. Looking for tips on transitioning from diapers to underwear with sensory issues. Okay, Allie. My daughter has sensory processing disorder, and what I did with her, and it's pretty simple actually, is if the diapers are still there, this child is not going to get rid of the diaper typically. If they know it's there, it's not going to go away. So my recommendation typically to families is to get rid of them, or at least hide them somewhere. Because until like almost essentially just cut the cord, get rid of, the diapers need to be away from sight. Put the underwear on and just be as vigilant as you can. I would like take them in every 45 minutes. The first thing I usually tell people to do when they're starting toilet training is get a calendar out for at least 2 weeks. Write down when that child goes to the bathroom, BM, urine, everything, so that after the 2 weeks, when you look through, there's typically some type of a pattern with the toileting, and then you have more success. So when you look at, like, he typically goes between like 9 and 10. That's it. So 9:30 would be a really good time to get them on the potty. And it would also be a great time to only allow them to have a specific thing that they really like. So like a certain show you can watch on the potty. There'd be specific activities they can do while sitting on the potty. And I would do the 2 weeks of tracking first so that you're not guessing when they have to go. And then hide the diapers and stick the undies on. That's just my suggestion. All right. Amber, routine is important. Even if I have to keep his snack and lunch at the same time, if I slacken his routine, we all know it. Absolutely. I think routine is huge, and I think that the kids will adjust. In fact, they'll probably adjust and staying up late at night, and I wasn't sleeping enough, and it was messing with everything. Okay, Jamie, you're welcome. Amber, you okay? Then he sits there and says, I'll watch you, then we play. That's okay if he does that, Amber, that's fine. I would just keep doing what you're doing, and then he'll play when it's time, but you still get your 10 or 15 minutes you need to do what you gotta do, and I would limit the attention you give to him when he's waiting. That's just my advice, and then maybe he'll like slip away and just go to play until the timer beeps. I think when it comes more of a routine, he'll see that he'll like it once it starts going. Okay, Christy, you're welcome. Thank you. Abby, you're welcome. Juliet, Allie is a unicorn. I'm glad to meet another one. Yep. Makes sense, Amber. Totally understand. Are there any more questions for me right now? Anybody have any questions? Because if not, I can go on to the next thing that I wanted to discuss. Let's see. So let's talk about how to use physical therapy and types of ideas in the classroom. I actually found some websites that have some really good tools on them, and I was going to be able to do screen share, but it didn't work because the new streaming doesn't work that way. So I am going to put the code for it, or the URL, underneath here. I'm going to put it in the stream so that people can access it. This is a really cool checklist that people can print off and you can use for yourself. So you could try that out. Hang on, my battery is going to die on this computer, so I'm going to email or message my daughter, my 14-year-old, and ask her to get it for me. Can you get charger for me? Sorry, guys. Okay, so we have more questions. Samantha, I can definitely post some meditation videos on the website later. GoNoodle.com has some great meditation videos that are like 3 to 5 minutes. They're guided and they're super effective. I use them in my classroom every day. Let's see. Daniel, I have a 2nd grader and 8th grader both in special ed. The 8th grader has anxiety and is getting overwhelmed. and if I try working with her, sometimes she shuts down and won't do anything, and the second grader won't sit for even 5 minutes. How could I help them both? Okay, so second grader. This little guy is extremely anxious right now, extremely stressed, and does not understand what is going on. I would take a second to sit down and explain that we have to do school at home now. And I'm happy to even help with a video chat if that helps. I know I don't know your children, but I'm happy to help out however I can. Eighth grader is probably feeling overwhelmed too and doesn't have the typical routine, doesn't have the supports in place that he or she usually has. She's shutting down because she feels like she can't do it by herself and she's frustrated. And having dad or mom as teacher is really, it's hard to accept. So I would ease into it and do, it's next to the thing where your sister works. Sorry, that was from Madeline. So I would do a schedule, but I would start with like a total of an hour. So I would do like 25, like for the little guy, I would do like 20 minutes, or even both of them, 20 minutes, do the work at the table, and then you can do 10 minutes of whatever you choose to do. And then 20 minutes, 10, 20 minutes, 10. The brain research out there shows that we can only focus for a maximum of 20 minutes, and that's adults included. Helps with it. I would recommend maybe starting their day with like a 5-minute meditation, and if they refuse to do that, that's okay. But it is a good way to start, and I would probably play the same one every morning when it's time to sit at the table, if that's possible, because then they'll know it's time. This is time. And if you have a timer, that's the best way to do 2010. I would not tell them to keep track of it. I would do it on a timer, the oven, the microwave, wherever you need to do it. Can you see if you can plug it in for me behind somewhere? Here. It's got a hook onto this. Just see if there's a plug over there, maybe that it'll reach. Sorry, I'm asking my 14-year-old to help me. Okay, so is there anywhere to reach over there? Let's see. And I think with the timer, Daniel, I think it'll help because that would be the best way to address it with them, because they won't be so anxious about how long they're going to have to sit there and how... That's okay. Thank you. It's just a lot. They don't know how long they're going to be there, and they need to know. They need to know I'm only here for 20 minutes, and then I can take a break. And that can be checking their whatever on their phones, whatever they need to do. Lauren, you can find the website address after. I can send it to you later. Amber, can I hear Power Tool? Yes, you can. It's Adam. He's making my new space. I'm so excited. He's working on it out there. He's off on Mondays. You're welcome, Daniel. Please let me know if you need anything else. I'm happy to help. Okay, so I have another checklist for OT, fine motor, gross motor, PT, speech. There's a great website called childdevelopment.com, and I'm going to put it in the comment section. Has tons of cool stuff on here, tons of charts, tons of checks, and it gives you lots of solutions. It's a really cool website, and I really, and it talks about a variety of things like crossing midline. It talks about so many things. It's really awesome. So I'm gonna post both of those right now. All right, let's see. So how to include? Okay, so we've already got that. All right, what is crossing midline, and why is it so important? Okay, so we have 13 minutes. We have 20 minutes, 25 minutes left. So crossing midline. Why is it so important? So the body has a midline. It's like an imaginary line between the center of the body that divides the body into left and right. Okay, so left and right. Crossing the body's midline is the ability to reach across with the arms and the legs. Okay, it allows children to cross over the body to perform a task on the opposite side of their body. So like they can reach over and reach something, or they can reach across and reach something. It's also very important with a variety of things, like zipping a jacket, tying shoes, all those types of things. Being able to draw a horizontal line across the page without having to switch hands in the middle. If you've seen a child have a marker in one hand and then go this and then finish with the other hand, that's an issue with crossing midline. The crossing the midline is an important developmental skill because it's needed for everyday skills. It's needed for writing, reaching for things, reaching for your foot to put on a shoe is included in this. Putting on a sock with both of your hands, hitting a ball with a bat. It's important. It helps develop dominant hand. We need it in our daily life, so it's very important to allow kids to practice midline, crossing midline. Crossing midline activities are really simple. There's tons of videos on YouTube about crossing midline, and actually the last link I uploaded has some crossing midline information on there. There is a guy on YouTube named Jack Hartman, and I play his videos regularly in my classroom. He's a goofy, funny, awesome guy, and he dances and he crosses midline, and he touches his knee with his hand, touches his other knee with his hand. The integration, the bilateral integration is important for working both sides of the brain. So if a child has struggles with this, it's going to impact a lot of their life. Core stability, it talks about trunk rotation. That helps stabilize the body so that they can sit up nicely and they can have control over their movements, better control over their movements. It teaches planning and sequencing, which is when a child struggles with multi-step sequences and instructions. It's body awareness, which is also spatial awareness, which then leads to social skills. So when you're aware of your body, then you become aware of your spatial awareness and your physical awareness, so that when you don't stand too close to people, and you don't bump into people, and you don't bump into things. And so crossing midline is really important. There's a lot of things it impacts. I have been just basically looking at things that are more educational. Sorry. Hey, Allie! I've missed your face. I'm glad you're here. So I'm talking about all the things we do every day. So how can I tell my child if he has problems with crossing their midline? Okay, so if they swap their hands midway through a task, so that means they switch from one hand to the other to finish a task. Or if they use the left hand for activities on the left side of the body, they use the right hand for the right side of the body. They rotate their trunk to the opposite side when reaching across the body? So like they rotate to catch things. Difficulty visually tracking objects. So like if you have them look over, and that includes joint attention and different things like that, they can't get an object as it's moving. Poor pencil skills, difficulty kicking a ball. Let's see. They use different feet or different hands to do different things. It's called mixed dominance. And that's challenging for a lot of kids with developmental disabilities. And it takes time to come, and usually eventually it does. It just takes time and practice and doing crossing midline activities and a variety of different things. Make sure that your child knows how to crawl. It's very important. Skipping. There's so many things that are impacted. So crossing midline activities, there's so many. If you type in crossing midline activities, you'll see a ton of them. For children that are wheelchair bound, for example, you can just have them cross midline with their hands. You can have them touch their knee if they're capable. There's ways to modify it for people. Let's see. What other problems can occur when a child has crossing the body midline difficulties? Okay, so pencil-based activities. If your child has a hard time writing, that can be a sign of crossing midline issues. Behavior. They might become frustrated and angry when they're engaging in a fine motor activity, especially like picking up small pieces or opening up chip bags or things like that. So it's important when a child, snack time and things like that are so important, because this skill, and I call it the birdie, make the birdie mouth, they take each side of the thing and they open it themselves. It's so important. So it helps with so many things. It's fine motor skills, midline, all these types of things. It coordinates both. You need to coordinate both sides of the body for physical skills. Reading is impacted by crossing midline, and because it's a tracking issue, be able to track, noticing all the details on a page when copying or drawing. So they leave out details when they're copying. So if you have a child that leaves out details when they're copying from the board, or when you write something on a piece of paper and they're supposed to copy it, like they're spelling words or things, and they're struggling and they are missing letters, or they're forgetting parts, or they're supposed to copy like an art picture and they can't, they're missing parts. There may be a crossing midline activity, and there's some simple things to work on that. So I would just continue to work on it as much as you can. That's really all you can do, is to work on things. But don't get too frustrated with them. It's frustrating for them as well. So the frustration is real for these kiddos. It's real. They are truly frustrated because they want to be able to do it and their body just doesn't want to cooperate. It just won't cooperate. And it's very frustrating. Let's see. And the problem is like when children, as they get older, there's increased pressure for them to take care of their life skills on their own, like zipping their jacket, tying their shoes. And I actually have a video posted on my Good to Know Good Row site of an assistive way to teach tying shoes, if you want to check it out. I did it with my youngest daughter who was struggling with tying her shoes, and I found it online and I loved it, and I've used it with my students, I've used it with her. It's very effective and it provides just enough support so that they can learn how to do it themselves. It takes time. Trust me, it's not going to happen overnight. Some kids, it happens really quickly. Some kids, it doesn't. We're all different. So, questions, because I have one more topic I really wanted to get into. Hi, Allie. Oh my gosh. So, okay. So one of the things I really wanted to talk about, too, was teaching kids to self-advocate and why it is so important. So every child should know how to advocate for themselves. Verbal, nonverbal, physically disabled, anything. They should know how to advocate for themselves, and they should have the right and the ability to do that. So self-advocacy. So it's important to be compliant. It's important to do what you're asked, but it's not okay when a child will not do what they need or get what they want or need because they're afraid of doing something someone doesn't want them to do, or they're worried that they'll disappoint somebody. They have to know how to advocate for themselves and know that sometimes it's okay to say no. The constant having a child say yes and agree to things, it isn't okay all the time. So it's hard to teach that skill sometimes because kids are trained to say yes a lot of the time. When a child becomes too compliant, their requests get continually denied, and then they just start to give up, so to speak. And then you'll see they'll stop advocating for what they need or what they want. They'll stop trying. They just kind of like are done because nobody listens when they try to advocate for themselves. A child that's never taught to deny something they don't like, deny food. It's okay to say they don't want to eat something because they don't like how it tastes or they don't like the sensory. It's okay. We're allowed to say no to things, and and it's okay. And because we can advocate for ourselves, it's important. There's a balance. There's always a balance in there. There's always a balance to say, yes, you need to say yes sometimes, and you got to go along with the flow. But then other times, if you eat goulash and it makes you want to throw up every time, then you should be able to say, no, I don't want to eat that. In whatever way they can. And kids that have limited mobility and are in wheelchairs and have people come in their faces and they can't do anything about it. Some of them can access iPads and they can access things. Let them have access to things in their iPad. Create them buttons, create them text pictures that can say, please get out of my space, or just leave me alone. Because sometimes we're allowed to say, leave me alone, or please back up. However you feel is appropriate. But kids need to have the same rights that we do. And you will see less behaviors when people are treated with respect. That's all of us. So kids need to be treated with respect too. Self-help skills are important too, and choosing their own clothes. Choosing their own clothes is a big deal. And even if you give them two choices, because God, some kids it's hard, I know. But my kids personally, I've been letting them dress themselves since they were 2. As long as their body parts are covered and they're good, I'm okay with it. They figure out their own style. They figure out their own person. It helps them learn who they are. It also gives them the feeling of I have some control over something in my life. And little people, especially kids, they don't have a lot of control in their lives. So they have a hard time. Valerie, hey, I work with 6 children that don't speak. Not selective mutism, different reasons. However, there are ways that they can advocate for themselves. If that child is given choices, they could point or they could look at the item. That could be an option. They could, if they're capable of writing and they will write the answer, that's fine. They need to come up with some new ways for that child to communicate, and be okay with different approaches. Because I have worked with children that have selective mutism. I've worked with kids from young to high school, and when I tried those other approaches, it was very effective. It still gave some control. Like, it can be something as simple as, okay, do you want this? And then, like, if they don't answer, say, don't look, close your eyes if you don't. You know, and they can close their eyes. Okay, so it can be something as simple as that. It doesn't have to be a big deal. And you know what? Speaking isn't all it's cracked up to be. You know, like, some of my kids that don't speak, they get their point across so much better than anybody else without all the rambling. So it's okay. There are other ways to work with that child, to get communication. There are so many options. They could even try a Prolo Q2Go, an iPad option, where she could push, or he could push the buttons on the device and it will speak for them. There are so many options out there, that are capable of helping that child advocate for themselves. I think that some new approaches may need to be tried, because there's definitely ways to communicate without language. We have 15 minutes, so any more questions? Pretty much all I wanted to cover. I wanted to make sure I covered a lot of things. I can also help with sensory questions if anybody has those. I have a bunch of my goodies here next to me in case I needed to show them to anybody. So I've got, like, my headphones. I have an arsenal of headphones, loose ones, tight ones. I have squishies, and, like, I have some really, like, sensory things do not have to be fancy and articulate. I will show you some ideas that I have in here. Like, this is just one of those, like, cheap plastic lays. Like, kids like this kind of stuff. And I've got, this is a nail dryer. Whoop. And I have more kids use that. Like, they love that thing. Let's see, what else do I have in here that's not based as sensory, but it is. Everything is sensory. And just to remind you guys, we all have sensory issues. Kaleidoscope, visual sensory. Let's see. I've got, for kids who have auditory, they like to, like, hear things, or maybe they have auditory sensitivity. This gives them some control, actually, about how things sound. So, so, like, there's so many things you can do for sensory. Okay, I have some more questions. Christy, what do you recommend for people that have a few kids with IEPs that they need to homeschool right now? Okay, so if you have a few kids at home that have IEPs, honestly, what I would say, my gut instinct is to tell you to just do the best that you can. If they have access to things online to help them out, or lessons or anything like that, don't push them to do everything. I would say that 50 to 75% of everything would be sufficient, and I would get in contact with the school somehow, email the teacher, and tell them, like, you know, I really need to know, like, how did you work with this skill? Like, if you have a copy of the IEP, you can look at the goals, and maybe you can come up with some suggestions of stuff on your own you can do at home to meet those goals. I don't know the specifications of what's going on, so I don't know if they're academic children or if they're children with behavioral needs. I'm not sure. So if you wanted to message me later with more info, if you don't want to share it on here, that's fine. So Christy, you can message me privately if you'd like to after, and maybe I can help you through some of those specific things, unless you want to share on here if you're comfortable. So let's see, where was I? Sensory. Let's see. So I've got something. This thing, like, you wouldn't think, you know, it's one of those little kid fake toothbrushes, like kids that have, like, they just need to manipulate something and move it, and they like to watch things spin. It does all those things. It spins, it clicks. There's so many random toys that you could throw into a sensory bin, and they're sensory. Hi, Juliet. What did you want? The voice thing? I know, it's awesome, isn't it? It's from Hallmark from, like, years ago, and this thing is, like, I have to clean it all the time. Like, let's just say that, because kids love this thing. It turns your voice into an elf's voice. It is pretty fun. So let's see what we have. I've got bean bags in here. I had someone that donated me a stethoscope that's an awesome sensory tool. And sometimes kids just use it to block their ears out, like so it just sounds funny and they like the way it sounds. Sometimes people use it on other people. You know, it just depends. Like sensory can be anything pretty much. Like I'm just telling you, like sensory, when someone says to you, you need to make sensory activities, it's much easier than people think. Much easier. Okay, Christy, academic. So I would consider, if there's work being posted, I would do the 20-minute work, 10-minute break schedule, as I've been recommending to other people. 20-minute work, 10-minute break, 20-minute work, 10-minute break. I wouldn't work then, like, I would say 4 to 5 hours total, and I would take a lunch break in there, and I would let them take a recess break. During the 10-minute break times, I would give them a few choices of what they can do, or let them just choose. If they're okay with transition going back and forth, I would be okay with that. I would put a timer somewhere that's either on the oven, or if you have an oven like that, that says 20 minutes, stop the timer. It gives some control over the situation. The anxiety is really high right now, and I think we just need to try to just get through it. Just get through it. As from my perspective, teachers will understand, and I think school districts will too. So I hope that helped. We have 10 minutes. All right, let's see. What do you recommend for OT work besides worksheets? Jackson, Tori, and Micaiah just got a huge envelope of tracing activities. By the time we get to the OT, they're sick of sitting still, especially Jackson. Okay, so OT stuff. So if they're working on fine motor skills, there's a lot of ways to work on fine motor besides just tracing. I would maybe start with the tracing in the morning, like get it out of the way. I would first thing, if possible. And you are doing a lot of OT stuff just because I'm friends with you on Facebook, and I've seen that you're doing all these great art projects, and they're doing all these things. You're doing OT with them already. But I did put in a link for OT, but this is another free packet you can download. I'll send it right here. Here it is, Samantha. So you can download ideas. But OT is so many things. Like it's just fine motor. Just focus on fine motor. Having them help pour drinks into another for the kids. Having them help, making sure that their fork, they're eating nicely. Stirring, like there's so many things that are included in OT, occupational therapy. Just look it up online. There are so many options out there that you can do with a child. Tracing is not everything, and I'm not an OT. I will not say that I am, but I have worked with these goals for a very long time, over 20 years with kids, and the more functional you make it, the more they react to it, the better they react to it. It needs to be functional in their life. Brushing their teeth is OT. Like it's crossing midline. It's manipulation. It's fine motor. It's so many things. So I would say that I would include that. So I would do the fine motor art activities. I would do the tracing first thing in the morning. I would only do one, and get that page done for the day, and maybe give an extra little reward for those because they're probably very challenging for them too. Tracing can be really hard sometimes. So there's also some things that I do for OT is I have daubers, bingo daubers, and I print off dauber activity sheets, and the kids daub, like they take the dauber and they daub the dots inside the different shapes, and they really like those. And they have to focus, they have to track, they have to do a lot of things with that somewhat seems like simple activity. There's actually a lot of skills involved in it. So that's just an idea. I hope that was helpful. We have 8 minutes. This has been fun, guys. I'm having a good time. Hopefully I'll see you Friday again. Same time, same place. Anybody have any more? I've covered a lot today. Let's see. This will be shared on the Family Forever Adoptive and Kidship Families of the North Country page too, so you guys can access it on there. It'll also be on the Good to Know Goodrow page, so you guys can review it later if you have any questions, and you're always welcome to message me privately too if you have specific questions. I think that in this time of crisis and this time of people being stressed out and anxious, that we just need to be patient with ourselves and with our kids. So here's another OT option and sensory. This little guy. So the OT part, see how I'm having to cross midline to take him on and off? Okay. Put him back on my finger. I have to use 2 hands, and I have to track, and I have to pull, and I just did an OT activity with this little guy. They are in the Easter section at most stores, and there's like a pack of 14 for like $1.89 or something. So that's where I go for things. So he's going to go back in the sensory bin. But there, I just did an OT and a sensory enrichment. There's so many easy things to do. People overthink them. Don't stress yourself out. Just have fun. I've always got these. These are always a favorite. And it's a snap bracelet. Ooh. See? Unicorn. Okay. So I guess we don't have any more questions. We still have about 5 minutes, so maybe there will be somebody that'll pop in. So I think that we covered today. We covered from the beginning. We covered adaptive skills. We covered PTOT speech, crossing midline. There are lots of speech videos online too to practice sounds. And a lot of times they do signs with the sounds, and I really, really enjoy the Patty Shukla videos on YouTube. Her name is spelled Shukla, and she does some really awesome videos, and kids really like them. She does like thank you and please and mom and dad, and she does the letters, and she does sounds, and she does a variety of things. But she's free. She's on YouTube, and she's a great way to do fine motor. She's a great way to do crossing midline. In that one, I can do crossing midline, fine motor, attention skills. There's so many things included in that one small activity of just playing a sign language video and following along. That's it. Let's see. And we also covered self-advocacy and why it's so important for kids to learn how to advocate for themselves. Verbal, nonverbal, mobile, immobile. It does not matter. They all need it. Jeff, my son has a very hard time with focusing for more than 30 seconds at home. His home is a safe space and doesn't typically require him to concentrate on the level required for school. I have been noticing that the more demands that I put on him, the more behaviors he exhibits. Would you recommend, should I push through this, or do what I have been doing, push in for as long as I participate and then step back when he starts to exhibit good behaviors? Okay, Jeff, you're on a great start. So stepping back when he has good behaviors is really good. I think what I would do is, how old is he? Is there any way you could tell me that real quick? Depending on his age is kind of how I have to figure out how to respond to that. Because I would say there's a working amount of time that how old is he? So I would say that you would probably start with just, okay, let's say that he's 30 seconds. Okay, that's not very long. So I would say 5 minutes of on-task work for you, and then he gets a 5-minute break maybe, or a 10-minute break. I would do 5 minutes of work and then positive reinforcement, a 5-minute break. And I think he'll find it fun after a while. And if you have a timer going, or he can help you set the timer or something along those lines, he'll be able to start. He needs to have a structured environment somewhat, and he needs to know that this needs to get done, but we will do it in your time. And I would give yourself a maximum of, if you're gonna do 5-minute 5 off, 5-minute 5 off, I would do a maximum of an hour for right now. It sounds like he's really struggling. I'm not sure how old he is or what his exact issues are going on, but you can also message me privately too, and we can figure it out. But I do think timers would be good, and if 30 seconds is his maximum attention span, then I wouldn't start for longer than 5 minutes. And you could do, I have a lesson plan ideas on my Good to Know Goodrow page that you can download and use, or you can just pull it up on the screen, and all the links, you can click on the links and go right to those activities. And most of them can be as short as 5 minutes or as long as 20. So you can actually do those activities maybe to get him motivated to stay there. A lot of them are video based. So it's more engaging, and it's not like you telling him, you could actually kind of join in with him and then say, great job working, and then give him the 5-minute break, set the timer, and say, okay, it's time to come back, and maybe do a 5-minute timer with a special sound on your phone or something to make it fun, like a sound, some kind of sound that you could play every time. I know it's a lot to think about, but I think it would probably help. A couple minutes, and then we're going to wrap this up. I wanted to say, everybody, thank you for coming. I had a lot of fun doing this, and I hope I get to do it again. Our plan is for Friday at 3:30, but I guess we'll see how that goes. Feel free to comment below or message me with questions on Good to Know Goodrow if you need anything else. Again, I'm Dr. Marcy Goodrow, and I am happy to help however I can. I know this is a lot for everybody. So thank you, everybody, for your time, and I'm so glad you joined me. Bye.